And now we are joined by Annette Luthy Lyon. I actually tried to look it up in the dictionary the other day what a Luthy Lyon was. Didn't come up with anything.
Nothing.
You know what's
nothing.
crazy? In the inspired version, there are many definitions of what a Luthy Lyon is. So we're just not ready for it. That's what I.
It's in the sealed portion or something, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Four Horsemen to deliver it to my house, but Amazon got here quicker. Very, very complicated. What's new with you?
Well, I am preparing for my trip to Finland in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I leave in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks after that, my book's out. So I come home just in time to be jet lagged and then do book launch stuff. So I'm super excited though to get back to Finland. People go again. I think I've mentioned this. Why did you go in March? That's not the best time of year. It's still cold. And I'm like, because that's what I can afford it.
Sure, sure. Can people pre-order your book? Is there a link you can send me the pre-order?
Absolutely.
That'll be in the show
Please
notes.
do. Okay. And they can, absolutely, for sure. Good stuff.
If someone wanted an autographed copy from you, is there a way that could be made possible?
In fact, I'm sure I'll be doing events locally. We're looking into a independent bookstore in Sandy, I believe, Utah. And there'll probably be others as well that I'll announce and keep people posted on.
Okay.
So follow me on social media or sign up for my newsletter and you'll get that information.
How do I do that? I mean, obviously there's a link in the show notes, but briefly, how would I do that?
AnnetteLyon.com. Really hard. There you go.
But there's no Luthy in the middle of it.
No, I opted not to include my middle name in my professional stuff because that's, as you know, it's a mouthful.
Sure. It is literally why I say it that way every single time.
And I appreciate it.
The only thing that I have to add that that we could talk about, I'm doing the canning project down at the cannery this weekend. I'm excited.
Very fun.
Headed down.
Do you know what you're canning? Last time I did it was chicken.
I have no idea. It's 3 hours on a Friday morning, and me and all the other senior citizens that don't have to work in the morning are going to go and do some canning. So we'll see how that goes.
Excellent. Have fun.
I am in a ward where the average age of the person is probably 70 something, 77, 78.
So is it one of the newlywed or nearly dead where you have a lot of little kids too, or is it just the old?
Nope, just nearly dead. Just everybody waiting. They're enduring to the end. It is the Taylorsville enduring to the end ward of the Church of Jesus Christ.
The Relief Society president just has, the touch tone. If you're reporting a death, press 1.
No, she has a rotary.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah. And so with that, it's funny though, because they, it passes the little sign up sheet for the cannery passes up and down the aisles like a silver bullet. Like, the best comparison I can think of is like a sacrament tray in a singles ward. It goes that fast. And,
wow.
And I'm the only one going. I'm representing a ward full of retired people, as near as I can tell.
Theory would have the time, you would think.
I'm fine. I'm good to do it. You were asked to present 5 stories of news, as the others have before you. It's unique to me, and what I love about those that help co-host the news segments is that there have been no repeats so far. Everyone has said, here are the 5 stories I would like to talk about, and no one has had to be pushed back and say, hey, we're not going to do that because we already did that, or the person before you that we haven't published already did that. So
that's kind of impressive.
Without any further ado, story number 1.
Dun, dun, dun. This is the one that I've been following for about a year and then realized we'd never talked about. And then there's been an update. So there's a Microsoft executive member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. His name was Jared Bridegan, I believe is how you pronounced it. He had twin daughters with his first wife, who is the daughter of the Stampin' Up! Founders, the big, huge scrapbooking empire people. They had a kind of a nasty divorce. They were, all kinds of stuff was going on for years after that. Then he remarried and had 2 children with his second wife. And so I believe it was a 2-year-old and a newborn as of about a year ago. And he had an evening with his twins dinner, dropped them off at their mom's house, as was usual, got in his car.
Dropped those twins from his first wife off at
with
his first wife's house.
Yes, and then he's driving off, and he's got his 2-year-old toddler in her car seat. Drives along. There is suddenly a tire in the middle of the road, blocking his way. That's odd. So he gets out to move the tire so he can move and keep driving, and he is shot. It was an ambush. The police believe the tire was placed there intentionally, and he was shot, and while his daughter was right there seeing it. It was this horrific situation. So as of just about a week or so ago, they made an arrest in the case, and they said this is not the only arrest that will happen. His name was Henry Tenon, was arrested for actually shooting him. They believe that some people are, the police are being somewhat tight-lipped, but the ex-wife has suddenly moved to the West Coast from Florida, and she's lawyered up and all of this stuff. So people are suspecting that perhaps she hired a hitman or whatnot. There's evidence that she had talked to people about wanting to off him.
And make her
jokingly.
husband. Do you know anyone who can make my husband, I think, disappear was in one of them, or be quiet was another thing.
Yeah, that kind of a thing. So on the slightly happier note, trying to make some, healing over this, his widow and now 3-year-old daughter have put together a way for this is the daughter wanting to help other kids who might be in a difficult situation. So her name is Bexley, which sounds a little Mormon, it's kind of fun. So they put together
more than a little Mormon, but I'm not jumping on the bandwagon because of the seriousness of the rest of the story. So
they put together what they are calling Bexley boxes, which includes like stuffed animals and coloring books and snacks and things, so that if there are toddlers like she was who have to be in police custody under traumatic situations, they'll have these things to help keep them happy and occupied and comforted. And so they had a fundraiser. They were hoping to get I want to say this maybe it was like 17, and they raised enough to get 20 something of these boxes, and they're trying to do even more of those. So there's some positive things going on, trying to help other children, and the fact that there's been at least one arrest. They're looking into future things. Anyway, we're hoping that things pan out there and that family can get some peace finally, because it's a very tragic story.
Link to the story and a link to the Bexley boxes in the show notes. Also worth noting that the guy who was arrested was a tenant of the woman's new husband in a home.
Oh, I did not know that. Oh,
yeah. So he either was a tenant at the time or had been a tenant of a rental property that he owned. So there was at least
there's definitely a connection.
Yep.
Yeah. So it wasn't a total stranger situation there.
So story number, isn't this fun to do this way? Story number 2.
Dun, dun. Oh, I feel like we need a sound effect there.
Maybe I'll add it in after the fact. Not likely, but maybe.
Mental note for next time.
Yeah.
So Gabrielle Blair is in the news again. You may know her as Design Mom and the author of Ejaculate Responsibly and all of that stuff. So her nephew, actually, it's a book based on her Twitter thread that went viral and huge, and now she's a New York Times bestseller and all of that good stuff. So her nephew Josh Sabey and his wife Sarah, they actually are the creators of there's an Instagram account called 4 Little Saints, and they were creating this Book of Mormon app story thing to help children learn the stories of the Book of Mormon and that kind of thing. They had their little toddler and then a newborn. This is last summer, as of July, and things kind of blew up since, where the baby was struggling to breathe, was sick with pneumonia or something like that.
Jeez.
Brought him to the emergency room, and they're like, well, okay, let's run tests. And this baby has very sensitive allergies, and so they, a formula is not even really an option, and the mom has to be very careful with what she's eating and all of these different things. They do an x-ray to check the lungs, and they find there's a slight evidence of a rib fracture that has healed, mind you. And they're like, this could be a concern, abuse or something, but this is also a newborn. And so if grandma grabs the baby out of the car seat a little too strong, that could happen with the baby as well. But CPS comes in, interviews a family. Yes.
Yeah.
And then they end up doing, it just turned into this massive thing of investigating that rather than even giving this baby food that's dehydrated and crying and not with mom anymore. And they thought, okay, we'll get all sorted out. We'll be fine. Go home. The next day, they finally get home and everything's fine, they think. And then at night, CPS came or I guess where they live, it was DCF, Department of Children and Family Services, came and took their children away in the middle of the night.
Oh,
and
geez.
yeah, it was with no evidence, no proof, and that's legal apparently in most states, which is terrifying. So it just turned into this complete disaster. Fortunately, remember whose parent, one of the sets of the grandparents was able to fly out where they live, and then the state was willing to give the grandparents temporary custody and then allow them supervised visits for a few hours a day. The mom got to be there a little more often just because she was nursing the baby. But it has just turned into this absolute nightmare of trying to defend themselves over something that didn't even happen. Anyway, and they've got $50,000 of legal bills in order to get this off their record, even if they're declared completely innocent. It will require more work, and if it's not removed, then that could prevent them from like having a daycare or being a teacher, or it could completely destroy their, anyway, it's just a nightmare. So there's a PayPal set up fundraiser. There's a Washington Post article that covers the whole thing that went completely crazy viral. Scary stuff though about how the law is actually not, you think there's so many children who fall through the cracks that makes you wonder, how does that happen? And how does this happen too, where parents just losing their children randomly when nothing happened? I mean,
yeah, but you always, you have to take the other side of that too, which is if there was enough concern, how much would we, Monday morning quarterback, if it's like, you guys, there was a broken rib and you didn't get the kids out of that house. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that there definitely is that other side of that, which I know I am prone to take if the story goes a different way.
Well, and that's the thing is that if you read the whole story, you realize at first it was like, oh, I understand why they're concerned, and let's do an investigation. Okay, that clarifies what happened then. No, now we're going to send more people over. Now we're taking your children. Now we're going to interview you again. It came down to that there was more and more evidence piling up that this was a good environment and a happy and safe environment. And they didn't care. It was almost like the sunk cost fallacy of like, we've already spent so much money and resources, let's just keep doing it. Whereas there are other children who probably needed to be taken out of their homes and didn't. So anyway, tragic stuff, but links to that
in the show notes. Story number 3.
This one's very quick, but it's just something I was thrilled to discover exists and is going to get even better. There is a new app called the Gospel Living app.
Okay.
On it, it's like there's a discover page, and it's kind of like a social media sort of thing. You can post things and then you can track your own, like your goals. You can, as adults, you can do the little 4 areas that the youth now are encouraged to set goals in and that kind of stuff. But the part that I liked is there are circles where you can message people in a safe manner. So you are automatically added to like for me, I'm added to the adults circle of adults in my ward, the Relief Society circle, and then my household circle. So I can message anyone within my household, which at this point is just me and my husband, but it would be my children as well, if they're minors. Eventually, and I believe maybe youth leaders and that kind of thing already can, but like youth, say like a young woman's president can message her youth, and that within the app, and parents can see it, and it's a safe space to do that kind of messaging, which hallelujah, because I mean, it's like I have a calling where I have to communicate with youth, and I am always roping in their parents into the text to make it appropriate. And anytime when the youth reply to me directly, I'm like, no, don't do that.
Make sure your mom knows. Make sure your dad is aware. I am 1,000% the same way, where I'm just like, hi, nope. Let's get someone else in, and 2
of them are young women and 2 are young men, and I'm like, guys, seriously, I need you to be responding to the thread that I tagged your parents on. Like, let's so
I don't want them to know I'm going to church.
So I'm not sure how it will work with it, because my calling's not in young women or young men or that kind of thing. So I don't know if I'll be able to like pick a circle and create that kind of a thing, but Anyway, I'm thrilled to find out, though, that there will be circles for youth and their parents for a safe way to communicate that the parents can monitor, and it's not going to be creepy town. I mean, that's going to be awesome.
And that's in the Gospel Living app.
Yes, Gospel Living app. There's I'll link to the article that was on in church the newsroom about that. But yeah, I didn't know it existed until someone else told me recently, and I had to look it up. So yeah.
Story number 4.
Number 4 is a thread that was about the dangers of rebreathed air in various situations, and specifically in our meeting houses, and compared to, say, a high school auditorium or a grocery store or whatever, and at what point it becomes dangerous.
Okay,
and basically
so pause
saying,
real quick. I want to make sure that I understand. Rebreathed air is so like I'm in my studio right now, and if my wife were here with me, I am breathing and she is breathing, and so she would be rebreathing the air, and so would I?
Yes, so it's like carbon dioxide going through the air, and therefore viral particles. And then so somebody is sick in the middle of the room with COVID or whatever, the likelihood of somebody else picking it up by breathing the same air that they're exhaling.
All right.
So basically saying our meeting houses are not exactly safe places right now, and we can do better with filtering the air. And so there were suggestions even of having CO2 gauges on the walls in various rooms, because like a sacrament meeting, chapels are probably safer than, say, the gospel doctrine, because that's a more enclosed space. But even in sacrament, if you're in the very first ward, it might not be too bad, but by the time the second ward comes in, you're already entering a contaminated space, and then you're adding to it. So basically we could do HEPA filters, we could do all these different types of things to help keep our members safe. So anyway, some suggestions, even things you can do at home and elsewhere to keep yourself safe on an airplane or in a car or whatever. So good stuff.
That makes me think to my favorite part of spring. But that day in spring when it's just warm enough that you can open every single window in your house, and it's like you just go, new air, all the
fresh air
come in, and you literally open every single window, and you're like, it's spring.
Yes.
That's what we need to do every Sunday in church. And we keep it cold enough a lot of the time. We could just open the doors, let the air come in, and then close it up and overheat it. And it also explains why I get so gosh dang tired in gospel doctrine, because that CO2.
It's too cold.
No, the CO2.
The CO2. Yes, everyone's a little lightheaded. We're all like just ready to pass out. That would explain a lot, actually. Yeah.
So story number 5, he said, with a question mark?
Yes, story number 5. The Mormon Women for Ethical Government group. They former guest of the hall, is it Charlie Glenn, is that right? Anyway, she's fantastic. She started it, and it's nonpartisan, but the idea is let's keep our government on an ethical place. And anyway, they're having their annual conference March 25th at UVU in Orem. It's Utah Valley University. There is a virtual option, and it does not cost much. It's like $35 for the entire conference. Initially, they announced that Sharon Eubank would be their keynote.
Interesting.
But she's no longer on the website. So I don't know if she had a conflict or what, but currently it's listing 2 main speakers, one Becky Edwards, who local Utahns would know. Yeah, former U.S. Senate candidate. We are people trying to get her to unseat Mike Lee. And then also Liz Wiseman, who apparently New York Times bestselling author, CEO of the Wiseman Group.
And previous guest of the Cultural
Hall. So those are the 2 main speakers, but there's a whole bunch of others. So yeah.
Sharon Eubank's conflict, don't you?
I do not.
Hi, this is the church. We have a conflict with you doing that. Oh, okay.
I wondered, but she's no longer in the general legislative presidency. But I don't know. It's one that I had the same question though. I'm like, I wonder if that's because she's still kind of, she's viewed, people see her and think church, like representative.
And I'm 99% sure that she isn't she is the head of like the humanitarian part of the church. That's her job now.
That's her like day job.
Yeah. So there's no way.
But they're like, no, it'll look like a representative, and it's not.
The lightning rod that MWEG is for very great things. I'm sure that she said, yeah, of course, I would love to do that.
And they're like,
the church
no.
says, like, we know you said love to do that. We'd like you to think about what this might be. And I hope I'm wrong. I really hope that the speculation and shade that I'm throwing right now is 100% wrong, and she had like a kid's baptism or something.
But yeah, I had the same thought.
Yep.
But yeah, I imagine it'll be a good conference though. So virtual or in person.
We go on with more news with other people. Thanks for being here, Annette.
Thanks for having me.